So my daughter got pink eye, and that kind of turned my whole life back around. Not to be dramatic or anything, also not dramatic. Is accidentally ghosting my YouTube channel for a year and a half, almost 2 years. Sorry, my bad. To be honest, I hit that wall where you're like, I don't really want to do this anymore. And then I stopped, and then I just didn't start again. So that was not really premeditated. It was just all the enthusiasm and energy ran out and on a lot of things in life. And then I was, wow, I'm done. And then I could not pick up the energy to do it. And then I was like going down my brain spiral of it doesn't even matter. Maybe I should post something. I like need a minute. And then I was like, no one cares. Your brain's like really nice. Nothing I do matters. The spiral goes on. So I didn't post anything. And then all of a sudden it was like a year and a half later. And I was like, oh, well, I want to do that again. So here we awkwardly are. I thought I would do a brief catch up for you of what has happened in that year and a half. If you want a rambly story, here you are. If you don't, I don't know why you're here, but welcome. Most of this was just my mental health absolutely falling into a toilet and being flushed somewhere. And now it's mostly somewhat back. So we'll go a little bit through that story of where that went. We'll go over some life updates and then end with where the channel plans to go from here, because it's going to look a little different than it had for the last bit before I left, I think. And I'd love input from you as well of what you would like to see maybe with it. I don't know. I'll go over that when we get to that part of the video. But for now, let's go on a life ramble of where were we there for a hot minute. So long ago, like 2 years ago, my mental health was in the absolute toilet. I've always dealt with like anxiety, depression type stuff. I realize now, like my entire life, I've dealt with that since adolescence. Didn't really get diagnosed or deal with anything about it till after I had my first kid, now 7 years ago. So it's always been something I've dealt with, and I've gone on and off. We've been good and bad with it. And 2 years ago, it was in a pretty bad spot. I was currently not like on any medication for it. I've been on Zoloft before. I've talked about that on this channel a lot. And I was off of it at that time because I do the typical cycling thing of, oh, I feel good. So obviously I feel good because of what I'm doing. So I don't need this anymore. So then I would stop it. And then I would inevitably start to feel bad again. And the cycle would repeat itself. So I was on an off cycle where I wasn't taking anything. And I was very anxious and sad. And I was confused because my life, other than that, looked very good. Like I have a great family. I had friends that we had met in our neighborhood and were hanging out with. So I like that was something we had for the first time in a long time. I was working at a job at home, which I thought was what I wanted. So I was like, I'm home all the time. I get to be around everybody that I love. Like, what on earth? Like, things are going well. So why is my brain angry? So I was like, okay, I will go to, go get back on my medicine and see if that helps. Well, I go to do that. And my insurance company was like, no, you can't actually do that through your primary care doctor. If you need anything psych related, you need to go to a psychiatrist or a psych NP or someone who works in psych specifically. And it has to be through this specific company that we provide you with. It was called, I guess I won't say, that might get them in trouble. It was awful. I imagine that's the type of thing where they get it for a better deal, like a discount. And then the providers probably are not paid very well in it either in order to be in that network. Because upon looking at all of the reviews, they were all reviewed terribly. So I imagine it was couldn't get a job anywhere else. I guess I'll work here. Maybe they're great. Who knows? Mine was not. We'll get into that. I had left over from when I had weaned myself off the last time about 4 or 5 months of Zoloft left. This is not medical advice. Don't do this. Being the human I am, I was like, I'm just going to restart it. I'm a nurse practitioner. I felt confident doing that. I've been on this medicine several times before. I was like, we'll just go with it. I restarted it and hadn't hit the point yet where I was feeling better when they were like, oh, surprise, we have a new appointment for you. Get you in there with this psych NP. And they set up, it was a virtual appointment. I was like, great. I'm just going to go in. This appointment will be easy. I will be like, hey, can I just get more Zoloft? Because apparently my primary care was not allowed to bill that this was anything related to mental health appointment or they would not cover it. Nightmare. Why they did that? Still don't know to this day. Anyway, go to this appointment. Tell them, hey, I've been taking Zoloft. I've taken it before. It's been helpful. I won't even lie. I said my PCP put me on this, but I can't go back to her for a refill because my insurance won't cover it. So now I'm seeing you. I did blame it on her. I'm so sorry. But same old, she put me on it at one point. It doesn't matter. She asked me if I'm having any side effects. And I said, yes, like some of the normal like GI side effects that you have when you go on Zoloft, which is very normal. Most people do. A lot of times they go away. It is a side effect. It's not like an adverse reaction. And this woman told me that was an adverse reaction. It meant that my body was not handling the medicine and that I needed to stop it because it meant that my body was rejecting it. I was like, legitimately, that is not what that means. And she told me she would only put me on Lamictal, which I didn't feel the need to be on Lamictal, but that's all she would give me. That is a very helpful medicine for very many people, but it was just not what I really needed in that moment. And so I said, I don't feel that's needed. This other one has helped before. I think we could go back to that. She said no. And then we started talking about my symptoms. She told me that my anxiety was all in my head. I was like, yes, that is the nature of anxiety. That's why I'm seeing you, not a gastroenterologist. And I never went back to see her, obviously, and reported her to the board because I was like, this is unsafe. This is not how a mental health appointment should be handled. So lesson one, okay, takeaway one from this video. If you go to see someone and they give you the ick, ask to go see someone else, okay, and report them if it feels like a true violation of, you should know what a side effect and an adverse reaction are, and you should not tell someone at a mental health appointment that it's all in their head. They probably know that. So anyway, that was my reward for going back into the mental health system. I also was briefly working with a therapist through this insurance that they had too. And she was very nice. It just wasn't helpful because I have, through a lot of other therapy, I know what I understand that I'm anxious. I just can't stop it. You know what I mean? That hasn't stopped. So it was more like chit chatting. And I was like, I can talk to someone else about like my feelings. I have never been a huge therapy person, to be honest. I know it's helpful for many people. It was helpful back when I was sorting through things, but it wasn't helpful in like fixing the anxiety that I was having, that everything was just awful and everything awful was going to keep having a lot of intrusive thoughts of worst case scenario type things. It wasn't stopping that. So I stopped therapy too. I fell into this black hole of like awful because I was like, wow, I tried to get help. She told me it was all in my head and would give me the medicine that I needed. And I can't go to my primary care. And even though I'm a nurse practitioner, I can't prescribe it for myself because I don't have a collaborating provider. And in Pennsylvania, you need that. So I was like feeling very lost and very sad for a really long time. And that is right about when all of that happened, was like, I was like done. That's when I stopped making YouTube videos because I was just like barely functioning in like life, let alone doing extra things. And that is how it was for a really long time. And if you feel that way, I am sorry because that's the longest I felt like that. And that was truly, it was horrendous. And I hope that you know that like you can go and get help. But I realize like too, getting help requires a lot of energy. And that's why I just urge you to, if you get the ick from someone, no, it's not you. Even I, working in healthcare, like felt like it was legitimately me. I was like, oh, if this psych NP is telling me like it's all in my head and it's all me, there's something deeply wrong with me that like medicine cannot fix. Anyway, so I just want you to know it is not you. It's okay for it to be all in your head. That is what your healthcare providers who are helping with your brain should be helping you with. And there is treatment and there is help. And I hope you were able to go and get it. But our healthcare system makes that really hard, as we saw. Anyway, all that to say, I felt like that for a really long time, over a year. And one day I go to a urgent care appointment with my daughter because she has, guess what? Pink eye. And it was viral pink eye because she had an upper respiratory infection, but it was yucky. And her school sent her home and they're like, she can't come back until she has eye drops. And I was like, she doesn't need eye drops. It's viral conjunctivitis. And the school nurse said, no, she needs eye drops. And I was mad. So I took her to urgent care and I went in that appointment. He was like, what are you here for? I was like, because my daughter's school requires antibiotics for a viral eyeball infection. And he was like, wow, I think it's dumb that the school is requiring that. He was familiar with that policy. He gave me the eye drops. I said, I won't be using these, but thank you. And before he left the room, and he said, wow, you were very opinionated about that. Do you work in healthcare? And I was like, yeah, I did. I'm a nurse practitioner. And he was like, I like that vibe that you had. He's like, you were mad about like antibiotic, like all that. I want someone like that. What is your background? And I was saying I worked in primary care. And he was like, if you want a job, I'm hiring. And I was like, oh, which was the first time that I felt useful in terms of nurse practitioner stuff again, because I was feeling very much, what am I doing with my life? I'll never be able to go back to working as an NP because I took this big break. At that point, it had been almost 3 years since my last job as an NP in primary care. I was like, no one is ever going to want to hire me again. in this role? What am I doing? And I just felt very lost, and I brought no value to like any aspect of my life, if we're being real. And for this person to come in and be like, hey, I think this would actually be great. It gave me that tiny spark of, oh, you could go and get a different job. And I sat with that. And that was the first time I felt like mildly hopeful that maybe we can dig ourselves out of this really atrocious, whatever I was in, toilet of a brain space. And I went in and I called him back and I interviewed with him. And it didn't end up working out that I would work there. But I was opened up to the idea that I could one day work in that capacity again, because they didn't really think it was a huge deal. They were like, oh, we could definitely use like your marketing experience, this other stuff. And I was like, oh, like this is actually not the end of the world. I was thinking like, oh, how would I get back up to ramping up back to NP stuff? How would I do? And I was formulating a plan of how I would get back up to speed because I was out of that world for a little. And I realized I do want to go back. I think I do miss treating patients and talking to people and being in that space. So I started applying to a bunch of other jobs. I started just cold dropping my resume off, really looking into things. And a few months later, I got the job that I have now. I started last April. So it has been about 10 months. So I work 3 days a week in a family medicine primary care office. I see all the way down from newborns through the end of life. And it was really hard. It was so hard for the first 6 months. I will probably make a video if anyone's interested in that and my tips for like reentry if you've been out or just, I guess, like starting a new job, because it was a lot. That was not great for my brain, I will say. I was immediately, what were you thinking? You were already in a bad spot and now you're doing all this. But 6 months into it, it got a lot better. And now 10 months in, it's good. So hooray for that. But in our mental health timeline, it was all over the place. I'm sorry. That was rough. But while I was doing that, I was also like ever so slowly adding in decent lifestyle things back in. I started exercising. Hadn't done that in 2 years. And that I used to do all the time, which was really helpful for my brain. I was starting to try to have a regulated bedtime where I would sleep more, was looking more at what I was eating. I mostly cut out alcohol. Like I just tried to overall make little baby steps over time to get things better. And it was helpful, but it didn't bring me back to, oh, I'm feeling like great. I still felt overwhelmingly, crushingly anxious and sad, not even related to work. Work made me overwhelmed, but it was just like life in general, which was my pinpoint to then be able to, I don't know, maybe 5 months ago, realize, oh, I'm doing all the things. I am exercising 5 days a week. I'm eating decently. I'm sleeping. I'm getting at least 7 to 8 hours. Like I'm trying to get 7 or 8 hours of sleep and be like responsible with it. Am I perfect with that one? Absolutely not. It's my biggest struggle is going to bed on time. But I was really trying to do all the things. And I was still like, bleh. And at that point, I realized I was like, okay, we're going to do a life experiment. So I went back to my primary care doctor finally, because that was covered by insurance now. And I was like, hey, can we go back on something? And she said yes. And she put me on Effexor. And within 2 months, I was like, good, I feel a lot better. And that is where we are today. And then a few months ago, it maybe a month or two ago, I was like, it could be fun to go back on YouTube, which hadn't been a thought that I had in a very long time. And here we are. It took me a long time to get up the emotional energy to figure out how to plug stuff back in, because it's just little tasks seem like enormous tasks for my brain, and plan out like, what would I even talk about? Because then as soon as I was like, oh, that kind of sounds like a fun idea, then I was like, no one wants to hear what you have to say. You don't offer anything to anyone, and blah, 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 blah. All these lovely voices came in my head, and I was like, oh, you're right. Oh, I'm worthless. So we're currently tackling that, and we're just diving in. We're choosing to just go for it, and we hope it ends up okay. Thanks for being here. So yeah, that was the journey. That was very long-winded. I am very sorry. Of what's been going on mentally that kind of made me leave. And now we're back because I can imagine doing things that I've been enjoying. And I'm like, oh yeah, I once had like hobbies and enjoyed creating things like this. So we're going to try. We're here. We made it. Big life updates. Let's see. So I have a new job, obviously. Like I said, primary care, 3 full days. I like my job. I like the people that work at my job. It's good. It's great. Other big update, Holly, our dog that we had for a very long time. She died, oh man, in September. So 5 maybe months ago. She was 13. She all of a sudden got cancer I went all over really fast. We kept her really comfortable, really until the day that she passed away. So I'm very grateful for that. But that is sad. I won't talk about it more because I don't want to cry in this video. Goal is not to return to the internet in tears. That's the goal. So far, we're succeeding. We'll see if we make it. I think so. We've covered all the big stuff that was going to make me cry. We do have 2 new dogs. So we adopted Riley around, it was like October 30th. And I only remember that because when I came home on Halloween before we went trick-or-treating, she was on our roof because she had busted through our window looking for my children trick-or-treating, and I see my dog on the roof. I was like, that's a trick. That's not a treat. I don't like it. She has calmed down a lot since then. Girlfriend has anxiety, but I think she was just like, it was a new environment. So that's calmed down. She's very great. After we adopted her, I looked on the website just to see, oh, what other dogs were there? Did I even want one dog? No, because I was like, I'm overwhelmed with life. Joseph, my husband, I was like, I can't handle a dog right now. And he was like, I will do most of the stuff. I get it. So we get Riley. I immediately go on the website because I have a problem. And she came up and they were like, oh, her whole family is coming with her. I'm like, I have to see who her family is. And her blind son is on the website. Excuse me. Yeah. So no one ended up ever wanting to adopt her blind son, and they were going to send him back. And so I had in my mind, I was like, if no one shows any interest in this dog in X, Y, and Z days, we'll email about it. And we emailed and they were like, oh no, please come try it out. And here we go. And now we have 2 dogs. And one of them is blind. His name is Leo. Riley is also going to go blind. They have the same degenerative something with their retina disorder. So they're both going to go blind, but Leo's like real blind. And he is wild. He is 1, and he is like just a rambunctious wild child. Did I need that in my life? No, but I apparently needed him. So here we are. And my third big life update, which should give all of you hope if you have small children, is my kids are now old enough to make themselves breakfast on the weekends. They can get cereal out, pour it in a bowl. They can eat it while I sleep in a little bit. So that has changed my life in more ways than anyone will ever know. And if you have small kids, don't worry, it's coming. You can't sign them up for sports though, because then you'll have to be up anyway to go to your sporting events. Now, let's talk about where the channel is going, because I hope it's going somewhere. We'll see. It did take me a really long time to set this all up though. So I'm a little nervous, and then my kids were screaming, just one of them. And I was like, I remember how this was a little chaotic, but we're going to try. We're going to really give it an honest try. I don't know what the schedule is going to be like. Actually, I do know what it'll be like. It'll be non-existent. I am still at a time in my life where even though I have those 2 days off, one of them is always filled with appointments, and the other one, I have my youngest still at home with me. So that day, we're not getting anything done. And I'm choosing to just try to enjoy that. And I don't have a lot of other time. Everything else is just filled up with like work and life and kids. So they're going to be all over the place. Who knows when they'll come out? Make sure to turn on your notifications if for some reason you want more rambles like this on topics that I think are going to be more related to NP type stuff, or just general, I don't know, life advice, maybe some vlogs. What is life up to? Like little fun things like that. I want the focus to be more different things I've learned, experiences, things that you could incorporate into practice no matter what you're doing in general. Just more of like how it used to be when I did more like nursing type videos. Not really geared towards like specifically nursing and nursing students anymore, just because I'm so far removed from that. But maybe NP type stuff, like I said, life stuff, less focused on like current events, all of that. I really thought there for a minute, I was a little deluded. I thought I could be like the next, I don't know, Dr. Mike or Mama Dr. Jones, where I was going to go and be like educating the public on these topics that we didn't have good education on. And I felt there needed to be more understanding around. And I was going to be the one to be able to explain it in a way where people understood or make them aware of issues that we could rally around and change the world. And my soul has been squashed. I'm back down on planet Earth. I'm not going to change the world by talking about that stuff. It just brought a bunch of trolls from the internet, and people were real mean. And I am mean enough to myself. We don't need the internet to be mad at me. That life is not meant for me. I'm pretty decent at talking to people in the clinic setting. So I'll just give advice on that, how to have these conversations, what to watch out for, general random advice, and whatever you would like to see. If you have anything in particular, we're like, oh, I'd like to see that. Let me know below. And if not, we're just going to roll with it and see where life takes us, because who knows? And then maybe next year I will have more free time. My youngest will be in kindergarten, and you never know. You never know where I'll have more time then. Maybe things will get more consistent. Maybe they won't. I will try to let everyone know if all of a sudden my mental health all of a sudden go like down the toilet again and say something, because I always like when my YouTubers, if they're going to just like peace out for a minute, they tell you. I feel like usually when people disappear, it's because their mental health is in the toilet. But hopefully it's just going to stay this way because I don't ever plan on coming off of my medication. That is what I have learned is we just do not need to play around with that anymore. Okay. I feel much better when I am on just a tiny bit of something. And she was like, well, Effects is really hard to come off of. I was like, girlie, I'm not ever coming off of anything. Whatever I'm going on, if it works, it's stuck with me for life. So that's where we are. So I plan on staying on that. That is where I was. That is what happened. Those are the life updates. And that's the plan going forward. Like I said, if you have any questions, leave them down below. Okay, now I'm really rambling. I'm going to go and see if I remember how to edit. That I am a little bit more nervous about. Sorry this was so long. I appreciate you being here. And hopefully, see you soon. We will. I will see you soon. I can do it. Bye, guys. Don't forget, I almost forgot my outro. It's been so long. You, my friend, are more than enough. You are not alone and you can do hard things. Remember that. Sometimes I forgot it in the last year or two, but it's very true. Okay, bye.